Let us discuss tomorrow's games because tomorrow morning is going to be, well, it's just Tuesdays. It's just easier if I do the Tuesday previews on a Monday night, which means I don't know the starting goalies. But lately, I haven't really been paying attention to starting goalie daily faceoff stuff because I think it's more fun to just kind of guess and see if I'm right, which sometimes I am and sometimes I'm completely wrong. But hey, sometimes it's fun to go both ways with that. There's 10 games tomorrow, so it's going to be a long day for me, and we'll see what ends up happening with this. First up, Arizona and Boston. This is an interesting one for me. The Coyotes coming off of a couple of tough losses. Boston coming off of a couple of wins. They eked out that last one. The one over Toronto was good. But as I said on Saturday, I don't know how much of the Boston victory over Toronto is psychological. I think at this point, I think Boston's in their heads. And so we'll see what happens with Boston against a team that is just kind of should be relaxed. The 13-2 Arizona Coyotes and against the 16-10-4 Boston Bruins. Leading the way in scoring for Arizona is Clayton Keller with 8 goals, 12 assists. Schmaltz, 5 goals, 12 assists. Ekman Larson, 2 goals, 13 assists. Stepan, 6 goals, 7 assists. Richardson, 8 goals, 4 assists. Hinostroza, 4 goals, 8 assists. Grabner, 6 goals, 5 assists. Galchenyuk, 3 goals, 8 assists. Goligoski, 2 goals and 8 assists. And Richard Panik, 6 goals, 3 assists. That's right. I went to the 10th leading scorer. Try to do something a little bit different each time when I've got the time to do so, and I decided to go to the top 10 scorers instead of 8 for tomorrow. Pasternak's the leading scorer for Boston, 20 goals, 15 assists. Marchand, 8 goals, 21 assists. Bergeron, 9 goals, 16 assists. Krejci, 4 goals, 19 assists. Krug, 2 goals, 15 assists. DeBrusk, 10 goals, 2 assists. Grzelcyk, 1 goal, 8 assists. Heinen, 3 goals, 4 assists. Backes, 3 goals, 3 assists. And McAvoy, 1 goal, 5 assists. Let's hope David Backes is finally getting on a little bit of a hot streak, which with 6 points over their first 30 games, you go, where's the hot streak? But he has been better lately. So fingers crossed on that one. Goaltenders, I expect Hill here. Hill's 4-2 with a 1.62 goals against, 939 save percentage. Darcy Kemper 4-5-2, 2.71 goals against, 914 save percentage. On the Boston side, I kind of expect Rask because Arizona's one of the lesser teams, and honestly, Halak's the starter now. Halak's 9-4-2 with a 2.3 goals against, 930 save percentage. Rask 7-6-2, 2.5 goals against, and a 917 save percentage. Over their last 10, Arizona's 4-5-1. They lost their last 2, and Boston's 5-4-1 and won their last 2. On the road, Arizona's 7-5-1. At home, Boston's 10-3. Versus the East, the Arizona Coyotes are 5-6-1 versus the West. Boston's 4-4-3. Boston is currently the number 1 wild card in the East, and that's a position that they enjoy, but they wouldn't mind moving up. But Buffalo has to lose for a bit, and they have to win for a bit for that to happen. But Boston definitely is a team that wants to look up and not down. You don't want to be worried about teams that are going to catch you from underneath. So for the Bruins, this is an important game. And for the Coyotes, equally important in that if they lose this one, they fall below 500. Of course, this is on the heels of the news that Antti Ranta may very well be out for the whole season. You could end up with a whole snowball effect going on with the Coyotes. But, we'll see what happens there because they're an unpredictable team. Next up, Vancouver. They've won back-to-back games for the first time since, I think it was November 1st was the last time they had back-to-back wins. It's been a while. And they're in against Columbus. And Columbus is a team that's been win one, lose one again. And that has been happening a lot around the NHL. This, again, comes down to the whole parity thing. It's going to happen. I'm aware it's going to happen. Your teams like Tampa, very, very rare. You will have most teams playing about 500 hockey over any 10-game period. Leading the way in scoring for Vancouver, of course, is Elias Pettersson, who is a god once again and may have a statue in Vancouver within the next month if he keeps it up like this. 15 goals, 15 assists. Horvat, 14 goals, 14 assists. Goldobin, 5 goals, 13 assists. Besser, 9 goals, 8 assists. Virtanen, 9 goals, 5 assists. Eriksson, 5 goals, 9 assists. Roussel, 3 goals and 10 assists. Granlund, 5 goals, 6 assists. Ben Hutton, 4 goals, 7 assists. And there's Stetcher with 1 goal, 8 assists for 9 points. And it'll be interesting to see how Eriksson and Roussel's scoring totals work if they're with Horvat. I'm not hugely sold on Vancouver's forward group as a whole, but you know what? They've won back-to-back. We'll see if they can make it 3 with a win in Columbus. Columbus' leading scorers, Atkinson, 19 goals, 12 assists. Excellent start to the season for him. Panarin, 7 goals, 24 assists. Dubois, 13 goals, 12 assists. Foligno, 7 goals, 9 assists. Jones, 5 goals, 11 assists. Werenski, 5 goals, 11 assists as well. Anderson, 12 goals and 3 assists. Wenberg, 1 goal, 14 assists, which is the same total as Ryan Murray. And then there's Duclair with 8 goals and 4 assists. Duclair, of course, got off to an amazing start and has really cooled off since then. On the goaltending side, I expect Markstrom, because he's been pretty solid lately. He's 10-9-3, 3.19 goals against, 898 save percentage. Nilsson is 3-6 with a 2.8 goals against and a 904 save percentage. On the Columbus side of things, I expect Bobrovsky. He's 11-10 with a 3.14 goals against, 898 save percentage, which would make Korpisalo the backup at 5-1-2, 3.59 goals against, 885 save percentage. Over their last 10, Vancouver's now 3-6-1, thanks to those 2 wins in a row. And the Columbus Blue Jackets are 5-5 and lost their last game. On the road, Vancouver's 7-9-2, and at home, Columbus is 7-6-1. They've been better on the road than at home. And versus the East, Vancouver's 5-6-2 versus the West. Columbus is 6-4-1, and of course, Columbus sits second in the Metropolitan Division. But if you lose a game at home against Vancouver, and with the way some of the teams beneath them are playing, they may not be very comfortable in that second spot. Not only that, but if they lose and the Capitals win tomorrow, they're watching as first place gets further and further ahead of them. So I expect a very competitive game. I expect Vancouver to be very fast and loose. And if you take them for granted, like I think that was part of what happened with St. Louis. I think they got caught flat-footed, which is weird because St. Louis not had a good year. But it felt like that to me. They just caught St. Louis napping at the start of the game. If Columbus doesn't come out focused and ready to go, I could see Columbus falling behind in this one. The thing is, we are in a league where no lead is safe now. So that doesn't necessarily make me feel a whole lot better as a Canucks fan. All right, next up, Montreal. The Habs, 15-10-5, are in against Minnesota, who are 15-12-2. Minnesota has fallen fast and hard. And for Montreal, they're riding a winning streak right now, and they'll be trying to capitalize on it. Remember, they're only 1 point behind Boston. So it is a very close race between the two right now. And for the Montreal Canadiens, the difference between being a first and second wild card is the difference between playing the Capitals and the Lightning. Okay, it's not a great matchup no matter what way you look at it, but either way, I would not want to play the Lightning right now. I'd probably rather play the Capitals. We'll see what happens in March or April if they're still the top seeds in their divisions. But for right now, Montreal's a bit hot, and Minnesota kind of cold coming into this one. We'll see if things switch for them. Domi's 14 goals and 17 assists, 31 points. He's as likely to have a statue in Montreal as Patterson is in Vancouver. Very popular players. Drouin, 10 goals, 16 assists. Tatar, 12 goals, 12 assists. Petrie, 4 goals, 17 assists. Gallagher, 13 goals, 6 assists. Shaw, 8 goals, 9 assists. Leikkanen, 5 goals, 11 assists. Kotkaniemi, 3 goals, 12 assists. Dano, 2 goals, 13 assists. And Paul Byron with 6 goals, 5 assists. In nowhere near as many games played as the guys above him, Byron's had a very, very solid season when he's been healthy enough to play. On the Minnesota side, Granlund, 11 goals, 17 assists. Parise, 13 goals, 11 assists for Parise. And really, honestly, as he goes, so do the Wild. Koivu, 4 goals, 17 assists. Suter, 4 goals, 17 assists. Stahl, 10 goals, 10 assists. Dumba, 10 goals, 19 assists. Zucker, 9 goals, 9 assists. Spurgeon, 3 goals, 12 assists. Nino Niederreiter, 4 goals, 10 assists. And there's Charlie Coyle with 4 goals, 9 assists for 13 points to round out their top 10 scorers. Goaltending, I expect Price. Be very surprised if not Price. Niemi's 4-2-1, 3.61 goals against, 893 save percentage. Carey Price, 11-8-4, 2.92 goals against, 902 save percentage. On the Minnesota side of things, I expect Devan Dubnyk, but neither goaltenders played particularly well lately. Stalock, 5-3, 2.65 goals against, 904 save percentage. Dubnyk, 10-9-2, 2.81 goals against, 907 save percentage. And at what point does Minnesota look at these goaltenders and say, no, maybe it's time to consider something radical and extreme here? Because the question becomes an uncomfortable one. Early in the season, I said, Minnesota's an older team. You ask yourself how long they can do this. As an older team, if they're falling out of the running, and goaltending is an issue, do you have to look at the possibility of making a big change in goal? I'm talking about saying, you know what, maybe we should move Dubnyk. And that's crazy, I agree. But with the core they have at the age they're at, you kind of need to take a run at it now. And if they're going to say, well, we're not going to make it this year, then you start looking at who you're going to rent out. So maybe you keep your goaltending the same, and then you're looking at forwards and defensemen and who you might rent out at the deadline. It could get crazy. Or what contracts you may need to move so that in the summer you're looking at changing your personnel. Could be a very interesting year for them. Minnesota 4-4 or Montreal's 4-4-2. They've won their last 3. Minnesota's 3-7 and they've lost their last 2. So over their last 10, it favors Montreal. On the road, Montreal's 7-4-3. At home, Minnesota's 8-4-2. So they're better at home than they are on the road. Versus the West, Montreal 6-4 versus the East. Minnesota's an unenviable 2-4-1. And of course, as stated, Montreal's the number 2 wild card in the East. And they're going to be looking at Boston and seeing if they can pass and take the number 1 wild card spot so they can play the Capitals instead. I know it's too early to talk about it, but it's still fun to look at. All right, next up, Ottawa. 13-14-4 Ottawa. You know, and I've talked about this a lot lately. Getting over the hump would sure help Ottawa. And a game like this would really, really do that. The problem is they're in against Nashville, who are 19-10-1. And while Nashville struggles against the West, they have been serving the East their lunch for the entire season. And we'll see if it happens again tomorrow. And with Nashville being at home, and Nashville should be angry over their last couple of games, I don't like the chances for Ottawa. So I'm not putting an Akbar up. I'm not putting an Akbar logo up today at all anyways. Those magnets will start going up more regularly once we hit about the midway mark of the season, I would think. I know we're getting close, but we're not there yet. Leading scorer for Ottawa is Stone. 15 goals, 20 assists. He's a UFA this summer. Duchesne, 12 goals, 22 assists, 34 points. He's a UFA this summer. Shabbat, 8 goals, 25 assists. Dzingel, 12 goals, 9 assists. UFA this summer. Tierney, 3 goals, 17 assists. White, 8 goals, 11 assists. Ryan, 6 goals, 12 assists. Bodker, 3 goals, 14 assists. Kachuk, who's gone, I think, 5 games now without a point. 9 goals, 7 assists. Lajoie, 6 goals and 6 assists for him to round out the top 10. On the Nashville side, Johansson, 5 goals, 20 assists. Forsberg, 14 goals, 8 assists. Yossi, 5 goals, 16 assists. Ekholm, 3 goals, 15 assists. Turris, 5 goals, 11 assists. Smith, 8 goals, 7 assists for him. Fiala, 5 goals, 10 assists. Arvidsson, 8 goals and 5 assists for him. Sissons, 6 goals, 7 assists. And Ellis with 2 goals and 11 assists to round out the top 10 for the Nashville Predators. Goaltenders, it'll be Anderson because McKenna played the last game and McKenna played well. Anderson's 12-11-3, 3.58 goals against, 906 save percentage. McKenna's 1-1-1, 3.98 goals against, 899 save percentage. I'm cheering for Mike, at age 35, finally getting a shot at a regular NHL job. I hope he does well. I hope it continues for him. On the Nashville side, I expect Rene. Saros is 7-5, 3.36 goals against, 885 save percentage. Rene, 12-5-1, 1.96 goals against, 930 save percentage. Over their last 10, Ottawa's 4-5-1. They lost their last game. Nashville's 5-5 and lost their last 2. On the road, Ottawa's 3-9-1, which is a brutal road record, and Nashville's 11-5 at home. Those numbers tell me it's probably going to be a Nashville win, and it may not be close. Versus the West, Ottawa's 3-5-2 versus the East. Nashville's 8-0-0. So Nashville hasn't even gone to overtime and lost in overtime against an Eastern foe. They're number 1 in the Central. They are still a very dangerous team, even if mathematically they're behind Calgary. The odds of them staying behind Calgary for very long are slim. Nashville's a pretty excellent team. That being said, let us move along. Next up, Toronto, 20-9-1. And they're in against the Carolina Hurricanes, who are 13-11-4. And the Hurricanes are a very interesting tale because while they're not in a playoff spot right now, they could be. They could be as soon as tomorrow night, if my math is correct. And not only that, but Carolina really, if they could get it together and get on a run, This is why I really believe that Don Waddell's probably working the phones a lot to try to improve them during down the middle or on the wings or wherever. Because their forward group, they need a scorer. And I don't doubt that they were regularly calling the Maple Leafs and saying, hey, if you guys decide to trade Nylander, remember, we're here. To which Kyle Dubas said, okay, you guys just called me 10 minutes ago. Stop. Just stop. I know. Please. Is that another assistant GM on the other line? Because I'm not answering line 2 if it's another. I'm not talking to multiple members of this team's front office at once. And I don't doubt that while I'm obviously kidding about that, I don't doubt that there was a lot of calls going on. Carolina, that finish needs to be there, and it really hasn't been this year. And with Aho playing the way that he is, eager to dish out all these assists to players, it really highlights, and I hate to say this, really highlights how much they miss Skinner and Lindholm. It really does. Skinner and Lindholm are both having fantastic years this year. Anyways, on the Toronto side, their leading scorer is Mitch Marner with 6 goals and 34 assists. 40 points in 30 games. The kid's pretty good. He's a pretty good player. Tavares, 18 goals, 14 assists. Riley, 9 goals, 23 assists. Matthews, 16 goals and 10 assists. Was pointed out when I did the stats video. Matthews is on pace for 60-plus goals. Right, but he has to be healthy for all those games that are remaining. And that's where the issue is with Matthews. He has trouble staying healthy. Kapanen, 11 goals, 10 assists. And I've been hearing other people saying Kapanen's likely to be traded out of Toronto. I keep hearing, Pietrangelo. I think there's certain people in the Toronto media who think that's a good fit for Toronto, and I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon yet. But if you can afford him, and if St. Louis is crazy enough to think about moving him, and I'm not sure why St. Louis would, but he certainly would help that blue line. So Kapanen, 11 goals, 10 assists. Marleau, 7 goals, 10 assists. Gardner's 2 goals, 15 assists. Kadri, 8 goals, 8 assists. Hyman, 7 goals, 8 assists. And Johnson with 7 goals and 6 assists rounds out the top 10. On the Carolina side, Aho, 8 goals, 19 assists. Teravainen, 5 goals, 15 assists. Ferland, 11 goals, 4 assists. Williams, 5 goals, 10 assists. Svechnikov, 6 goals, 7 assists. Stahl, 5 goals, 6 assists. Wallmark, 2 goals, 9 assists. Martinook, 7 goals, 3 assists. Hamilton, 3 goals, 7 assists. And Jacob Slavin, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points to round out the top 10. And yes, Svechnikov should eventually be a sniper for them. He just hasn't been yet in his rookie year. And I don't think you want to put all that pressure on him. I think if he scores 15 goals and 35 points, I think you're happy with that from a rookie. And we'll see where he goes from there. But they definitely need somebody up front that can put that puck in the net. Goaltenders. I expect Freddie Anderson. Sparks is 4-1-1 with a 2.84 goals against and a 913 save percentage. Anderson's 16-8 with a 2.5 goals against and a 926 save percentage. On the Carolina side, with McElhinney out with an injury, I expect Mrazek here. Darling would be the backup at 2-4-1, 3.14 goals against and an 892 save percentage. Mrazek 4-4-2, 2.41 goals against, 899 save percentage. McElhinney 7-3-1 with a 2.36 goals against and a 919 save percentage. Over their last 10, Toronto 6-3-1. They've lost 2 in a row. Over their last 10, Carolina's 5-4-1, and they won their last game. On the road, Toronto's 11-4. At home, Carolina's 7-4-3. I do like Toronto a lot in this game. I'm going to be honest. I like what the matchup I think favors Toronto across the board. With McElhinney out, I would definitely take Toronto. Versus the East, Toronto's 9-6-1. Versus the East, Carolina's 7-5-2. And Toronto is number 2 in the Atlantic, which is kind of where they're stuck as long as Tampa's on this insane winning streak. I'm going to just forget that I talked about them in the President's Trophy for now because nobody's catching Tampa right now. But that being said, I am now in a place where I need to switch boards. And next up, Edmonton. Yes, the Oilers. In 16-12-2 in Denver tomorrow night. Denver's 17-8-5. And this is an interesting matchup for the Oilers. And I say that because the Oilers have been playing very well since the new coach took over. Ken Hitchcock got them playing pretty solid hockey. And for Colorado, they're at home. And while they look tired at the end of that road trip, they're at home now. So This should be a game that would favor Colorado, but let's look at the numbers. Your scoring leaders for Edmonton: McDavid, 16 goals, 25 assists. Draisaitl, 15 goals, 19 assists. Nugent-Hopkins, 8 goals, 18 assists. Chason, 12 goals, 3 assists. Clefbaum, 3 goals, 12 assists. Kajula, 7 goals, 3 assists. Kara, 1 goal, 9 assists. Darnell Nurse, 3 goals, 6 assists for him. Russell, 1 goal, 7 assists. And Larson, 8 assists for him to round out the top 10 scorers for the Edmonton Oilers. On the Colorado side of things, of course, that huge top line, right? Rantanen, 12 goals, 36 assists. He's your league leader in points with 48. McKinnon, 20 goals, 25 assists. Landeskog, 17 goals, 17 assists. Soderberg, 10 goals, 11 assists. Barry, 4 goals, 17 assists. Kerfoot, 4 goals, 14 assists. Gerard, 2 goals, 10 assists. Wilson, 7 goals, 4 assists. Jost, 4 goals, 10 assists. And JT Compher rounds out the top 10 with 7 goals and 2 assists. Goaltenders. You know, I expect Koskinen here after the shutout. We'll see. Talbot, 7-9-1, 3.12 goals against average, 895 save percentage. Koskinen, 9-3-1, 2.06 goals against, 929 save percentage. I expect Varlamov for Colorado. Grubauer, 7-1-2, 3.00 goals against, 907 save percentage. Varlamov, 10-7-3, 2.63 goals against, 918 save percentage. Over their last 10, both teams are 7-2-1. How they got there is different. Edmonton's won 3 in a row, and Colorado lost their last game. On the road, Edmonton 7-8-1. That's part of their game they're trying to get fixed up. And at home, Colorado is 6-2-3. Colorado this year is weird because this year they look better on the road than at home. Last year, of course, they were terrible on the road, and they were great at home. So that's just the way it works sometimes. Versus the West, Edmonton is an impressive 11-7-1 versus the West. Colorado is 7-4-3, and Colorado is still second in the Central. But they're looking over their shoulder because they got Winnipeg right there, and Winnipeg can't wait to take that spot from them. So Colorado desperately needs this game. So does Edmonton. Edmonton will have seen that San Jose won tonight, and they got to keep pace with them. San Jose doesn't play tomorrow night, so this is a good chance for them to keep pace and keep the heat on them. And also, if they can get to 17-12-2, at some point we have to have the discussion about just how much Hitchcock has helped to fix everything that's wrong with the Oilers, and how Oiler fans that were crying and screaming for the firing of McClellan were very likely right. And Peter Chiarelli may get his job saved by doing what fans told him to do at the end of last year, 20 games into the season this year. So the fact that he eventually did it could very well save his job, which may drive some people nuts too. Why does Chiarelli still have a job? Why haven't they fired Shia yet? Why is Shia still there? Anyways, moving on. Chicago, the sad sack Chicago Blackhawks, who are just, this is awful, isn't it? They're 9-17-5. 9 wins, 17 losses, 5 overtime or shootout losses. This is really, really sad. Winnipeg is 18-9-2. So for Winnipeg, this is a must-win game because Chicago's coming in, and they've won 1 of their last 10. You've got to put them down. On the Chicago side of things with scoring, Kane, 15 goals, 19 assists for 34 points. But what's interesting about Kane is that he's a -8. Now I know, plus-minus doesn't mean anything, but it's interesting to see him with a minus number after so many years of really solid plus-minus. Taves, 13 goals and 11 assists. DeBrincat, 11 goals, 12 assists. Saad, 8 goals, 8 assists. Anisimov, 6 goals, 9 assists. Gustafsson, 5 goals, 8 assists. Seabrook, 3 goals, 9 assists. Cahoon, same number. Keith, 12 assists. And there's Dylan Strome with 6 goals, 4 assists, 10 points. So on the upside, you've lost Schmaltz, but you've gained yourself a Strome. And so far, his scoring numbers are okay. But again, while plus-minus doesn't mean anything to anybody, his numbers in Chicago have been awful. So 5-on-5, he's still struggling. On the Winnipeg side of things, Wheeler, 5 goals, 32 assists. Scheifele, 16 goals, 19 assists. Laine, 21 goals and 5 assists. So he must have seen my video about the not getting assists thing because he had 2 of them in their last game. It's gonna go to his head. He's gonna start passing all the time. Connor, 11 goals, 15 assists. Ehlers, 9 goals, 10 assists. Bufflin, 3 goals, 15 assists. Little, 7 goals, 10 assists. Morrissey, 3 goals, 12 assists. Trouba also has 3 goals, 12 assists. And there's Brandon Tanev with 5 goals, 6 assists. Interestingly enough, Ehlers, is quietly putting together a half-decent season after taking a lot of flack and a lot of heat early on for his lack of goal scoring. In net, I don't know. Do you keep putting Crawford in? I feel bad for Crawford right now. His record's 5-14-1. He has a 3.21 goals against, 901 save percentage. It's not Crawford's fault, but my God, his win-loss totals, they're just awful. Ward 4-3-4, 3.91 goals against, 888 save percentage. Brossoit is 5-1-1, 2.16 goals against, 935 save percentage. You may play him here because it's Chicago. Hellebuck is now 13-8-1 with a 2.8 goals against and a 910 save percentage. So Hellebuck is starting to round into form again. When he's bad, he can be pretty awful. But when Hellebuck is on it and he's confident and he's playing the right angles, he's one of the best goalies in the league. So it's kind of a mix with him. Over their last 10, as I said, Chicago's 1-9. They've won one of their last 10. Winnipeg 6-4. They won their last game. Of course, they had a 3-game winning streak, which was ended by St. Louis. Now they've won again. We'll see if they can maintain their momentum against Chicago. Remember, they lost to St. Louis, so Winnipeg is known to lose to teams that they really shouldn't. On the road, Chicago's 4-11-2. At home, Winnipeg is 10-4-2. So those records tell me that Winnipeg should win this game. Versus the West, Chicago's actually, this record, I'm going to go ahead and say is wrong. Let me double check on it. Okay, so that's what happens when you're watching a hockey game and you're trying to get your boards ready for the next day's games at the same time. Yes, Chicago's lost 7 in a row, so they're trying not to make it 8. It's a 5-11-3 record versus the West for Chicago, and a 9-5-1 record versus the West for Winnipeg. I had them flip backwards. It happens again because I'm watching New Jersey and San Jose, trying to keep track of that, and I'm trying to get this on the board because it can be time consuming. But I've found that if I get the preview boards ready while games are going on, it's a lot easier to get this video up before insanely late for me, even though right now it's flirting with insanely. It's moderately insanely late. But anyways, moderately insane might be the odds of Chicago winning tomorrow and stopping this 7-game losing streak. But when it's a long losing streak like this, I usually favor the team that's got the losing streak because I say, you know what, this probably flips the script. There you go. Next up, LA, 11-19-1. My lord. In against the 17-9-4 Buffalo Sabres, but hidden in their record is the fact that, yes, they've lost 5 in a row. 2 of those losses in overtime, and I've said this before. It's happened with Philly last year, remember? They lost 10 in a row, but 5 of those losses were in overtime. If you can lose your games in overtime, you're not falling that far off the pace. That 10-game losing streak looks absolutely hideous. But as long as you're getting points here and there, you're not out of it. And in Philly's case, they still ended up making the playoffs. On the LA side, Kopitar's their leading scorer with 8 goals and 11 assists. That's right, 19 points in 31 games. And he's their best scorer. Oof. Doughty, 2 goals, 15 assists. Brown, 8 goals and 8 assists. Points per game, Brown is the best scorer. Carter, 6 goals, 9 assists. This is Kovalchuk at 5 goals, 9 assists for 14 points. Toffoli, 5 goals and 8 assists. And I kind of agree with one of the Kings fans who subscribes to the channel here saying that Toffoli's days could be numbered in LA. Honestly, the way they've been playing, I don't think anybody should feel comfortable with their job in Los Angeles right now. If you're feeling comfortable with the way things are going, you should go. Toffoli's 5-8-3. Or 5-8-13 points. Iafallo now has 5 goals, 7 assists. Iafallo's a guy who I think is safe. The upside's there. Martinez should also be safe. 3 goals, 8 assists. I would think Adrian Kempe, who's had a down season compared to last year, is still safe as well. 4 goals, 5 assists. Jake Muzzin, not so sure. 1 goal, 8 assists for him. Because defensemen will always have trade value. Buffalo, Eichel, 9 goals, 27 assists. Leads the way for them by a wide margin now. Skinner, 20 goals and 10 assists. Reinhart, 8 goals, 17 assists. Pominville, 9 goals, 9 assists. Ristolainen, 3 goals, 15 assists. Okposo, 5 goals, 10 assists. Dahlin, 2 goals, 12 assists. Sherry, 6 goals, 6 assists. McCabe, 2 goals, 8 assists. And Casey Middlestad with 4 goals and 5 assists rounds out the top 10 scorers for the Buffalo Sabres. Goaltenders, Quick played tonight, so can we get Peterson tomorrow night? Quick's now 2-7-1 with a 3.22 goals against and an 890 save percentage. Campbell 5-7, 2.33 goals against, 923 save percentage. And Peterson 4-4, 2.41 goals against, 929 save percentage. Not sure why they haven't been playing him more since Quick came back. I think this would be his first appearance since Quick came back, actually. And on the Buffalo side, I expect Hutton. Ullmark has now lost his first game in regulation. He's 5-1-3. 3.04 goals against, 913 save percentage. Hutton, 12-8-1, 2.60 goals against, 917 save percentage. And this is kind of what I was worried about with Buffalo. That their goaltenders, as much as I know Buffalo loves that they got 2 brand new goaltenders this year, Ullmark played for Rochester, so he's brand new to the Sabres this year. In that this would be his first full season at the NHL level. I did have some concerns about that starting rotation and whether or not either of them could maintain starter numbers throughout a full season. And right now, it's looking kind of shaky. Now, over their last 10, LA is 4-6. They lost their last game. Over their last 10, the Sabres are 5-3-2, and of course, they've lost 5 in a row. On the road, LA's a woeful 4-9 at home. Very intimidating record for Buffalo, 9-3-2. But again, they've really got to start winning some games here. Versus the East, LA is 5-8. Versus the West, Buffalo is 8-4-1. And they're still third in the Atlantic. But that overtime loss to Toronto, where a couple of seconds left on the clock in overtime, and they lose it. It's kind of describing what's been going on for Buffalo over the last week and a half. They find ways to lose. The same thing I've said about Chicago, I could say about Buffalo as well. And it can be difficult to pull out of that too. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to our next game, which is Detroit, the surprising Detroit Red Wings, who are now 14-13-4. Does everybody remember at the start of the year when they looked like they were going to have the same start as Arizona had? Because they've actually played pretty well since then. Admittedly, over their last 10, they haven't been as solid as they were, but they've actually had a good record. And tomorrow night, they get a chance to prove themselves in against the Washington Capitals. So Detroit coming off of a win against LA, where they get outshot badly, but they don't break. And pretty important game for the Red Wings here. This is an important we belong in the playoffs type game. We at least belong in the conversation for the playoffs type game, because nobody's picking Detroit to come out of nowhere and get a playoff spot. Now when you've got Boston, Montreal, Buffalo, Toronto, and Tampa. As much as Buffalo has fallen, it'll take them a while before they're really worried about Detroit. And for Washington, honestly, they look like they're ready to run off and hide as the number 1 team in the Metro. We'll see what happens. Your leading scorer for Detroit, Larkin, 12 goals, 17 assists. Nyquist, 7 goals, 20 assists. Athanasiou, 11 goals, 8 assists. Nielsen, 5 goals, 14 assists. Bertuzzi, 9 goals, 7 assists. Green, 3 goals, 13 assists. Mantha, 9 goals, 5 assists. Cholowski, 5 goals, 8 assists. Vanek, 3 goals, 8 assists. And Abdelkader, with 5 goals and 5 assists, rounds out your top 10 for Detroit. On the Washington side of things, Ovechkin, 22 goals, 14 assists. Backstrom, 10 goals, 24 assists. Carlson, 5 goals, 25 assists. Kuznetsov, 7 goals, 20 assists. Vrana, 9 goals, 9 assists for him. Connolly, 5 goals, 13 assists. Oshie, 9 goals, 5 assists. Wilson, 8 goals and 6 assists. Eller, 4 goals, 10 assists. And Niskanen, 4 goals, 10 assists to round out the top 10 scorers for the Capitals. Goaltenders. It was Howard tonight. Do you put in Bernier tomorrow? It's an interesting question because Howard played pretty well tonight. Howard now is 10-6-4, 2.68 goals against, 923 save percentage. Bernier, 4-7, 3.38 goals against, 893 save percentage. On the Washington side, I expect Holtby, 11-7-2, 2.85 goals against, 911 save percentage. Phoenix Copley now is 6-2-1 with a 2.95 goals against, 902 save percentage. Over their last 10, Detroit's 4-4-2 and they won their last game. Washington is 8-2 and they won their last 2 in a row. On the road, the Detroit Red Wings are 6-6-1, and at home the Capitals are 8-4-2. Versus the East, Detroit's 9-9-3 versus the East, Washington's 9-4-2, and of course they are first place in the Metro. The numbers would indicate that this should be a Washington win, but I have liked seeing Detroit get the odd upset here and there, so we'll see if they end up doing that tomorrow. The Capitals are not going to go down easy. It's one thing about the Capitals. Whether Wilson were in or not in the lineup, the Capitals are not a team that goes down easy. There are many reasons why they won a Stanley Cup this past spring. And to me, it doesn't look like that chip's fully off their shoulder. You see the Stanley Cup hangover happen, and I think it's already happened with them. I think they already went through that malaise while Wilson was out. Wilson came back, seemed to be the spark. I think even if Wilson is injured for an extended period, I still think they'll be okay. And it seems like that fire is back and that chip's back on their shoulder. And maybe it could be just something as simple as them rallying around Wilson and or around this idea that maybe they fluked and they want to prove it wasn't a fluke. Or just the fact that there's a lot of talk about dirty players in the Washington Capitals, and they want to kind of prove that they're the best team. So we'll see how far they go with this. All right, that being said, let's move on to the final game of tomorrow night, which is the Florida Panthers and the St. Louis Blues. Okay, so I'm not ending this on a very fantastic, positive, enlightened game. But it's a game between two teams that have underwhelmed, underachieved, and can't seem to get on a run. And for St. Louis, it's been kind of apocalyptic. And for Florida, it's been very frustrating. Florida gets all kinds of goals and has problems in net. Florida has one or the other. Either their goaltenders are playing well and they can't score, or they can score and their goaltenders are abysmal. Sometimes they do both. They can't score and their goalies can't stop anything. But there's some bad puck luck going on. There's a lot of... It's been really rough for St. Louis. Between the two, I think Florida's had the better season, but it's a barely. Florida was supposed to be better than this. They're 11-11-6. St. Louis is 10-14-4. And this is my somebody has to win game for tomorrow. Scoring leaders for Florida, highlighting the fact they don't have problems putting the puck in the net. Huberdeau, 8 goals, 26 assists. Hoffman, 14 goals, 14 assists. Dadonov, 13 goals, 15 assists. Yandel, 5 goals, 23 assists. Barkov, 11 goals, 16 assists. So that's 5 guys right there who were right around a point per game. And in Huberdeau's case, well above. It shows that they can score. Trocheck, 3 goals, 11 assists. Ekblad, 7 goals, 6 assists. Matheson, 2 goals, 11 assists. Frankie Vetrano, 8 goals, 2 assists. And Jared McCann, 5 goals, 5 assists to round out the top 10 scorers for Florida. On the St. Louis side, O'Reilly, 12 goals, 17 assists. Tarasenko, 9 goals, 11 assists. And I think we may have to start thinking outside the box if we're St. Louis and consider moving Tarasenko. I'm serious. He's still going to have a lot of market value. He's having another underwhelming season. That'll be 2 in a row. And maybe it's time to roll the dice and see what you can get for Tarasenko. Perron, 8 goals, 8 assists. Shen, 6 goals, 10 assists. Steen, 6 goals, 5 assists. Pietrangelo, 4 goals, 7 assists, who I don't think is on the market. I really don't. Bozak, 3 goals, 8 assists. Dunn, 3 goals, 7 assists. Sanford, 4 goals, 5 assists. And Jaden Schwartz, 2 goals, 7 assists. He may be a name that gets mentioned a lot by Toronto media because now Doughty has signed for 8 more years in LA, and they can't bring him up, so that's the next best option, I guess. I don't see it. Why would St. Louis trade Pietrangelo? I don't understand it. If you're a St. Louis fan and you understand it, let me know. Goaltenders. Luongo starts if he's healthy. 5-4-1, 2.94 goals against, 906 save percentage. Reimer, 5-6-3, 3.36 goals against, 893 save percentage. And I'm not trying to be funny about Luongo. Who knows when he's going to be healthy. On the St. Louis side, it'll be Allen. I don't see Bennington coming up to start. I mean, I guess crazier things have happened. You could have Bennington come in and start, I guess. Johnson's waived, and I assume tomorrow morning either claimed or he's in the American League. 2-6 record, 3.55 goals against, 884 save percentage for him. Allen's 8-4, 3.11 goals against, 900 save percentage. St. Louis fans, I think, are fed up with Allen's hot and cold act, which is more cold this year than hot. And I really think St. Louis is looking for a huge makeover. In their last 10, Florida's 3-4-3. They've lost their last 2. LA. They're bad teams here. St. Louis 3-6-1. They lost their last game. So your guess is as good as mine on this one. Because when you look at the road record for Florida, they're 5-6-2, but the home record for St. Louis is 6-8-2. Yeah. St. Louis has had a ton of games at home, and they can't win them. Versus the West, Florida's 2-4-1 versus the East, St. Louis is 2-3. It's a pick 'em. If you say, well, I think Florida's going to win because I think St. Louis is the weaker team, okay. If you say, well, St. Louis is going to win because Florida has a way of losing on the road, gotcha. Florida's going to lose because Luongo's going to get hurt, okay. St. Louis is going to hurt because Allen's going to allow a fluky goal in the first period. All right. Game's going to be 1-0 in a shootout. Sure. 8-7. You got her. It is, to me, the most unpredictable game tomorrow night because both teams find ways to lose, and it is truly the game somebody has to win. And yes, I am trying to come up with a magnet which truly conveys the somebody's got to win ethos, and also a game of the night magnet as well to denote the game that I really think is going to be the best game of the night. So there we go. It's something I'm working on. My last video I just did, I said we're getting close to 68,000 subscribers. And then I looked while I was uploading, like, wait, it's close to 69,000. This is how quickly you guys are helping the channel grow, that I'm losing track of these things that I used to obsess on. It used to be on every board, how many subscribers until the next big milestone. So thank you guys so much for the fact that I don't really track that anymore. Means a lot. Anyways, there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I apologize to people on the East Coast for how late this video is getting uploaded, especially those of you with school in the morning. Anyways, I will talk to you guys again soon.